Today, Music Talk brings you the words, the music, and the voice of Anaïs Mitchell. Anaïs' 8th album was released earlier this year, and so we catch up with her on the road in Seattle, Washington, to be exact. It's the first show with a new band, but if this live performance we're hearing right now is any indication, we have a feeling things are going to go very well. So the album's been out for a little while now, right?
Yeah, it came out in January.
I have a copy of it. Look at it.
Oh, look at that. Life size.
So what's it been like putting the record out in this day and age?
Wow, well, it feels like a miracle that we're touring around, you know. I did one tour in February, and I'm out on another one now, and heading over to Europe in the summer, and so far, so good. I'm knocking wood over here.
I mean, it's got to be pretty scary thinking about touring Europe with everything that's going on over there.
Yeah. You mean politically, not even the COVID stuff?
No, not with the COVID, with the bombs.
Yes, yeah. It really feels like everything in this time, it's kind of like things are shifting quickly, and everyone is sort of ready for if something gets canceled or postponed or changed. That just is, people are rolling with those punches right now. Yep.
So what kind of show are you playing solo? Do you have a band? What's happening with your tour?
I have a band. This is actually the first night I'm playing with these new players. But I know all of them, and I'm sort of friends with all of them. We've just never played together. But really beautiful. Ray Rizzo is playing drums. Mike Libramento is playing bass and some other stuff, and my old friend Austin Nevins is playing guitar. And I really wanted to have kind of a full band sound for this, to tour this particular record.
Right. So I assume you must have had some rehearsals working up to this point. So
We did.
So when you do that, what kind of communication happens? Do the songs kind of move around and change a little bit? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's always an interesting process, I think, of players kind of interpreting what's on the record, you know, because that sort of is a blueprint, but then also wanting to inhabit it with their own personality and play the music as they would standing in their own shoes. And so it's kind of like, where does that land?
Right.
It's very exciting. It definitely feels, I think we'll probably all feel sort of heart poundy about the show tonight just because it's the first one that we've done together, but we're all super excited about it.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the record itself and how you made it, because it's not your first one. It's about your 8th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So when you get to the point where you're making your 8th album, how different is it for you when you're a wily veteran at this point? You've done a few. Do you have a plan, a routine, or how do you go approaching it?
Yeah, well, this one was really different for me. You're right that it's not my first record, but I took a big break because I was working on this musical for many years, and I found I didn't really have the kind of creative attention to work on my own songs at the same time. So it's been a while since I made a record of my own, under my own name and with my own songs, and so for me it felt like a return. I was living in New York City. I was 9 months pregnant when the pandemic started in New York, and I uprooted, and we went to Vermont, this very rural little state, which is where I grew up, and had the baby. And then suddenly we were up there just in that moment of like total stillness that so many, of us experienced, just completely unplugged from everything. And I kind of found my way back to the guitar, back to writing my own song, sort of what my own voice was. And these songs they're very intimate. Like they're a lot of times with my musical, but even the songs I wrote before that, I would like to take on other voices, kind of take on other stories. And this record is not that. It's like all the songs are me singing about my life, which I've been sort of shy to do in the past, and I just kind of, that's what wanted to pass through, so that's what happened.
So I'm assuming that the tune Bright Star, which I see there's a video for, is kind of about you kind of connecting with your muse in some form or fashion. Is that correct? And if so, tell me all about it.
Bright star, when I first laid eyes upon you, I was filled with such a longing to be with you in the dark. Bright star, since I could not fly beside you, I would chart my own course by you, and I'd sail it by your light.
I mean, one thing was that literally moving back to Vermont, like I could see the stars again.
Oh,
For the
okay.
first
Yep.
time in a
Well,
long time.
New York City is not great for that.
Right. But I think for me, like metaphorically, it's like it was that stillness that allowed me to to look at many, many years of kind of restless pursuit. You know, you're
Right.
chasing down that thing, whether it was my musical or, you know, touring or whatever it was that just kept me and all of us, I think, so busy. And being able to look at that and like, you know, what is the source of that? The like mysterious source of all of that kind of restlessness and longing and desire to keep chasing and chasing and sort of make peace with it. So that's what that song is about to
Uh,
me.
okay. And it's followed by a tune called Revenant, which I like the sax in that. Is that a guy named Michael Lewis playing that?
That's right. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no one like Mike Lewis. You can tell his tone right away. It's
Right.
very singular. Yeah.
And so, what's behind that song, and what caused you to think, aha, this one needs a sax solo in the middle of it?
Old familiar chest of drawers holds the mirror you dressed before, throwing shadows on the floor. I know you're behind that door.
So that song is when I moved back to Vermont, I moved into this little house that used to belong to my grandparents when they were alive, and it's on a
Right.
family farm. My parents have a home. My brother's family has a home, and my grandparents used to have this little house. And so, I was surrounded by all these objects. You know, the lock of a child's hair,
Right.
the vanity dresser, the mirror, all the things that I remembered from my childhood, and really kind of went back in a lot of ways into the experience of being a child and kind of being one with my surroundings and this sense of freedom. And that song, it sort of remains mysterious to me. Like it's about that time for me, and it's about re-encountering kind of my childhood at the age I
Right.
am now.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
the revenant could be my grandma. It could also be me returning, you know, to the home where I grew up, and so I think there was something about the whimsy of the saxophone, right? That it felt like it captured this kind of, you're a little kid, like get upset about something in the house and you run out of the house into the garden and then you are the garden. You know, you're there in the flowers, and there was something about that sax that felt like it captured it. The record, I should say, is produced by Josh Kaufman,
Right.
who's my bandmate in Bonny Light Horseman, and really incredible producer. And I think, you know, he wanted to preserve that sort of that whimsical nature.
Right. 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 So, when you're talking about growing up in Vermont, what kind of musical memories do you? What are your first musical thoughts and memories about that?
Mhm,
Was it a
mhm.
musical upbringing?
Yeah, my family are not musicians, but they definitely appreciate music. And my dad had a great record collection
Yeah.
and was always like a kind of a lyrics man. You know,
Right. Right.
he would retain all the lyrics and sing them along with the record. And I think at his happiest, when I saw him at his happiest, he was listening to music. My grandparents bought me a little tiny violin when I was 7 years old, and they paid for me to have violin lessons. So that was also kind of my first entree into music. Eventually, I quit and I picked up the guitar.
Probably
But
your parents' relief, because I know my brother tried to learn the violin, and listening to him practice every day drove us all crazy. So,
yeah, no one wants to listen to that. In fact, I used to practice at my grandparents' house. I think maybe for that reason.
right. Yep.
They
Yep.
set it up that way. But my dad is and was, especially when he was younger, a writer, and so words were very important for sure. A lot of books in the house, and I wanted to be a writer of some kind. And it took a while to figure out that like songs was my way of writing.
Uh-huh. And who did you look to, if anybody, as far as how to write and inspiration for writing?
Hmm.
Was it the Dylans and the Cohens or the
Yeah.
Mitchells or
Yeah, those were the first ones, the
yeah,
Dylans, the Mitchells, and the Cohens, and then when when I entered high school, I kind of came of age during a sort of a boom for female songwriters in the '90s.
right?
Ani DeFranco was like really
Oh
important to
yeah,
me,
yeah.
and Tori Amos and Dar Williams, and then a little later, I found my way into traditional music.
Mm.
by way of maybe Gillian Welch, and then I started to get into like overseas stuff, English and Scottish and Irish balladry and folk music, and I think I
Yep.
recognized in that stuff maybe something that I'd responded to in like the early Bob Dylan or something
Right.
about
It's all related. All that's,
yeah,
Bob Dylan, a lot of his melodies and all that stuff come from folk songs from Ireland and, God knows where. So
yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, that's cool.
Exactly.
Now you mentioned the show that you worked on before this record. Has that influenced or changed the way you think about your own music now?
That's so funny. Yeah, I know that it changed my writing in some way, but I can't really put my finger on what it is. I definitely had to become more methodical. Like,
Right.
there was suddenly a lot more voices in the room, and it'd be like, well, there's a room full of actors here, and you have to have the new draft of this song by this day. So I had to really kind of put my head down and make it happen in a way that when I was in my 20s, I would just kind of wait around for inspiration to strike.
Right.
So I was grateful for that, sort of like the methodology there. But I also think that this record didn't come out of that. It was almost, I felt so free, after working in that way for so long, where a song had to not only like be like work as a song, but also work as a piece of drama and like work as a development of a character arc, and a sort of development of a plot. And then suddenly I found myself after really like a decade of working that way with none of those parameters, So it's just like the song could go anywhere it wanted to go. And the kind of yes and quality of just writing into the song.
Right.
That was like quite a rediscovery for me, very joyful.
Yeah, it seems like the song "Now You Know" kind of addresses some of those issues, being freedom and youthful and all that. Is that what's behind that one?
And when I think of my youth, I think of my freedom. I'm gonna think of my freedom. I feel so alone, and when I feel lonely, I want you to hold me in your arms. Ooh.
Yeah, Now You Know is sort of like encapsulates, I think, a lot of the themes of this record. I think there's a lot of like growing up themes on this album, and that's a song that's really like, yeah, it's about growing up. It's about trading the sort of the late nights for the early mornings with becoming a parent, having children.
Yes.
Yeah, and also this sort of feel your feelings for your partner, your like love partner who you're young with, and then the just all the feelings that are bound up in that person because uh, they're going to be there until you die. I mean, I think that's the sort of the sense of mortality that's bound up in being partners and being in a family with someone.
Right.
That's what that's about.
Right. Now I'd like to touch on Your Way, which is Felix's song, and I know Felix was somebody that obviously you've written the song about. He passed away last year, so tell folks who Felix is and what he meant to you.
On your way, on the F train in the dark, on your way, you were wearing your guitar. Solo show, Lower East Side, no one show, sing the B-sides in the wild, on the side stage, crooked smile looking my way. I remember when you were seeker, staring into a stereo speaker, kick drum and someone singing, made you one with everything. I remember when your tape was rolling, you were going where the take was going, no regrets and no mistakes, you get one take, you're on your way.
Yeah, Felix was this incredible songwriter that I kind of came up with in my early days. We had the same manager briefly, and so we did some shows together, and we tried to co-write songs a few times. He was an amazing songwriter who ended up becoming like a Nashville kind of co-writer guy,
Right.
and had some success in the Nashville world. And he was also just someone who was always going for it. He had his guitar strapped on his back all the time. He would just whip it out, in any circumstance. And he was always writing, always kind of, his ethos was to just go for things.
Right.
And he, in fact, he wrote an entire album where he wrote a song a day for 50 days, and then he put that music out. And for me, it was like, as someone who tends to be very slow and methodical and kind of overthink things, edit them to death, it was
Yep.
radical to encounter someone that approached creativity in such a different way. And I'm so grateful for my friendship with him, my time with him, and that lesson from him. And so that's a song I wrote sort of in honor of him.
Right. And you mentioned your band, Bonny Light Horseman. What's happening with those guys?
Yeah. Well, we made a second LP, which is coming out in September.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we're so excited about it. It's, our first record is very traditional. It's a lot of kind of reimagining of traditional text and some traditional music, and this record is original. It's all stuff that we co-wrote together, and it's sort of meant to live in that traddy world, like kind of be in conversation with the old songs, but they are new songs.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. And have you ever been down to this part of the world?
I've never been.
Oh my God.
I know. I'd love to come. I would love to. It's like it's a long flight. I have two
Well, yeah, that
kids,
it is.
but as soon as I get a chance, I would love to come.
Yeah, that would be cool. Because Australia is right around the corner, so you can get a few gigs there too, probably, and
Okay. All right.
make it pay off for you. So, yeah. All right. Well, so you're playing in Seattle tonight. Good luck with that,
Thank you.
and thank you for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for taking the time. Yeah.
Have a good day. Bye bye.
Here's you. Bye.